say.
Goodbye, I imagine, is the thrust of it.
Well, I hope she's gonna maintain the local office.
We only collect the 6 mils.
That would be nice. We have plenty of office space here.
Well, it depends on the school district, because
Equidistant to whole district.
That's right.
Residential 6
All right,
well,
folks.
summer and winter.
We all set here?
6 says 3 mils each. We don't have that. Armory, took all 3 mils.
But afterwards.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock, so we will call this meeting, the regular meeting of the Township Board of the Charter Township of Meridian, to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise if they're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next agenda item is item 3, roll call. Will Deputy Clerk Gordon please call the roll? Nope. That's what I get for not looking over.
Supervisor Hendrickson.
Here.
Clerk Demas.
Here.
Treasurer DeShane.
Here.
Trustee Lentz.
Here.
Trustee Wilson.
Here.
Trustee Trezise.
Here.
Trustee Sunland.
Here.
All board members are present.
Thank you very much. Item 4 on our agenda is presentations. We have one, the AED Heart Safe Community Program, and for that, we'll turn things over to Chief Hamill.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor and Board, and new board members, welcome. So, as you are aware, we entered into a contract with Stryker about a year ago to get a lot of new equipment. I will tell you that program's worked very well, and the prices of, so the monitors, the new monitors we got are already up about $15,000 from the purchase price we got them at. So we're already saving money. Obviously, the price of doing business has gone up tremendously. But part of that contract is what they call this Heart Safe Community. And what it is it's from a group called Forward Hearts, and we're working through the process right now with an application with them that we started. And what that does is it gives us the ability to work with our businesses in Meridian Township to try to get them to buy an AED if they don't have one. So let's look at the statistics first. So if you look at the statistics in the United States, and this is about a 30-year statistic that's really gone unchanged, there's about 350,000 out of hospital cardiac arrests annually. 10% of those survive. Not many. But if you can get an AED, which we call it shocking, because you remember back many years ago, CPR was pushed hard and then the AED was instituted. Between CPR and electricity, much better chance of survival. Well, we've seen an increase, but it's still roughly only about 10%. So roughly, if we can add an AED to that, there's 2 or 3 times more likely that you will survive. So we can increase that number. So the other benefits of this, those that buy these AEDs, when we show up with our $50,000 monitor, we take the pads they have on the patient's chest and plug them right into our unit. So they're universal. Many AEDs, like the old one we had here, the old ones we had in the fire station, couldn't do that with our monitors. Additionally, when they use their AED, we would get an alert. Now, we're not getting away from 911, so that's been a big question. But an alert will go to our training chief's computer, and what that also does is it gives us information on what was happening to the patient for training purposes. Just like our big $50,000 monitors, we can get a plethora of information out of that. It's pretty amazing. They almost tell us what to do today. They're very intuitive. So what this program does is it gives us the ability to work with the community, businesses, and they can get an AED at a 30% discount because we have this contract for 10 years with Stryker. And we would be the point person to purchase it, but how that works, we've now worked with the EDC through Amber, and they are going to be the fiduciaries. So what happens, let's say you have a business that you want to buy an AED. and tell us what you want. We tell you what the equipment is between the AED and some supplies. And then we get a cost from Stryker, and we give that to them in their name, and then they would pay the EDC when the equipment comes in, then the EDC pays us, and it's a wash. So the reason we went through the EDC, obviously, because Amber recommended it, but they have their pulse on the community, on the businesses. And the other thing that will happen with this is they're going to get training that they don't have. We're going to supply some of that. We're going to help them with the equipment. So up front, as this continues on, it'll give us an opportunity to really build a community that is heart safe. Eventually, someday, we'll get signs that says we're a heart safe community. Lansing's working on it right now. Detroit, I think, already is one, and many other big cities. So right now, we have two groups. One is Capital City Rifle out of Williamstown Township, and then Arnott Insurance right out of our area here that have already ordered. And so that was what we were just doing it with them. Now we're going to work through the EDC to make this happen. So the huge benefit here is really building a heart-safe community to protect our people. 10% survival rate's not very darn good. And so if we can add AEDs to every business, and there's a lot that have them, but there's a lot that don't. They're a little over 2,000, so they're not cheap. I think we can build a community that is going to help people that have cardiac issues and hopefully have a higher success rate in keeping them alive. I would open it up for questions.
Board members, do you have any questions of Chief Hammond? Trustee Wilson.
I have a process question. What is the reason for bringing the EDC into this mix and instead of a direct relationship between the fire department and the businesses?
Amber, you want to touch on why we went with you over, because we were going to originally use, sorry, I know you're not feeling great, but. Yes.
Chief Hamill mentioned that they're doing this Heart Safe program. Obviously, it is a commitment to reach a certain statistic in the community. So one, you want to keep track, but two, also he was proposing to take Meridian Cares as a fiduciary. And Meridian Cares, though, is a different type of animal that I believe that, and I feel like the EDC already participates as a fiduciary for Juneteenth. They already are established as a asset to the community to invest in business and to enhance business. That is the reason why it was initiated in 1981. Makes perfect sense. They have a bond that they receive from Bircham and the annexation that they are supposed to put into an investment into the community. So receiving money from potential businesses, the idea was also that another business could donate additional funding for a new business that may not be able to come up with the full $2,000. That way, the EDC, complete blank, clean, can give the money to the fire department, can buy the equipment, and that can be given to a business. So it makes it efficient, and we already have that process in the township.
Thank you, Amber.
You're welcome.
Yeah, with that, she did bring up a good point. If any business wants to donate extra, they'll put that in a pot, and when they have enough, they'll buy an AED for somebody in need. One of the suggestions was let's do an annual drawing, whether we use opioid money or other avenues to help supplement this. It puts more AEDs in the community, and that's really what we're trying to do.
Thank you.
Trustee Marna, did that answer your question? I'm sorry.
For now, thank you.
Other board members? Well, thank you. I think this is a really laudable goal, laudable program. I think, it will help to keep us healthier and safer as a community, and so what we're all about. So we appreciate your taking the lead on this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is item 5, citizens address agenda items and non-agenda items. We have not received any green cards. If anyone would wish to speak to the board this evening, we'd ask that you please fill out a green card and submit that to us. Seeing none, we'll open it up. Is anyone wishing to speak to the board at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed at 6:09 p.m. Next on our agenda is item 6, interim township manager report. And for that, we bring up interim township manager Tim Schmidt. Mr. Schmidt.
Mr. Supervisor, thank you very much. For those of you that weren't there on Saturday in the cold, we dedicated the Farmers Market 50th anniversary murals. They're great. 2 of them were installed here at the original Farmers Market at this pavilion behind the town hall building. And 2 of them were installed at the new market along Central Park, adjacent to the mall. They're great. The art's phenomenal. They're really nice. I mean, it's kind of fun because I can see one out my window. So it's really nice to have that additional artwork in the community. Police and fire departments have now been under the recruitment and retention program that the board adopted for about a year. And as such, we will be giving you a formal update on that program at the next meeting. Cliff Notes version, it's worked really well. So Chief Grillo will be leading a discussion on that at the next meeting for everyone. At the popular request of the public, we are installing pet waste bags along Phase 1 and 2 of the MSU to Lake Lansing Trail. Just goes to how popular it is that we've already gotten that request. Phenomenal addition to the community, and we continue to work on Phase 3 if we can get a meeting with the railroad, which is always a difficult thing. Following up on an item that I wanted to mention that came up during Saturday's goal setting, which, again, excellent session, and staff will be compiling all of that information for the board's review, likely at the second meeting in December. But the police department is actually in the middle of their implicit bias training right now. It's something that's required to be done as part of their accreditation. And so they are completing that cycle right now, and we are going to start to have a conversation on what that looks like to expand that throughout the township employees. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, safe travels. I am on honey tarts, stuffing, and green beans this year. So my in-laws will have their palates expanded when I show up. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Board members, any questions for Manager Schmidt? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is item 7, board member reports of activities and announcements. Any board members with activities and announcements to report? Treasurer DeShane.
Thank you. Property tax bills will be arriving in residents' mailboxes next week, starting Monday, December 2nd. Included in this year's tax bill is a new information sheet, which all the board members have a copy of in front of them. It's called What's on My Winter Tax Bill. This sheet lists all the items that make up your winter tax bills. Includes the name of the millage, the year it's adopted by the voters, when it expires, the millage rate, and the tax collected for an average household in Meridian Township. It groups these taxes by Meridian Township, transportation, libraries, LCC, and the back by Ingham County, and then local schools. Hope this is helpful. The tax bill, the winter tax bill is a very detailed bill, and we have to get it all to fit on the bill. We have to group several millages into one Ingham County category. So we've broken them all out here so people have a better idea what their taxes, what makes up their tax bill. Really hope this is helpful for taxpayers. And if you don't have a tax bill in the next 2 weeks, give us a call. We'll mail you a new one. The Postal Service is not as reliable as it used to be, and some people just don't get a paper copy of it. Taxes are due on February 14th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Treasurer DeShane. Other board members? Trustee Wilson.
I wanted to thank our Parks and Recreation Director for a wonderful ceremony on Saturday, the 50th anniversary of our farmers market, which is hard to believe, even though we've probably been going for 50 years. It was really, really nice, and it's just great to recognize this jewel in our community.
Others? I will add that in addition to also joining everyone at the mural dedication, which I agree was wonderful, that we did have a board retreat on Saturday. We went over a number of topics, including goal setting, initial discussions for 2025, which I think went really very well. On the 20th, I met with Manager Schmidt, Deputy Manager Opsimer, and Commissioners Polsdorfer and Schaefer to have a discussion about intergovernmental cooperation regarding our local roads and the county road projects that are yet to come. So hopefully we'll be seeing some good interest coming out of that. And then on the 19th, had a senior and community center meeting here in this room. The task force met, and I'm happy to say that it was a very productive session. A number of members of the senior center were present, and the task force and the public went through and did essentially a design charrette. We talked about what it is we want to see out of that. So a lot of exciting content generated out of that. And there is a second session that Progressive AE is who is our consultant, ran that session. And they're running a second session specifically for the senior center members on December 4th at, I believe, 10 a.m. in this room. So we encourage anyone who would like to join us for that to please do. We're looking to find out exactly what the community wants, and this is a great opportunity to weigh in. So that is my report. I saw no other hands a moment ago, so we'll go ahead and on to the next agenda item, which is item 8, approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion to approve the agenda this evening? Trustee Wilson.
Move to approve the agenda.
Supported by Trustee Sunland. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the agenda as presented, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Next on our agenda is item 9, our consent agenda. On our consent agenda this evening, we have a number of items, including the communications with the Township Board, the minutes of our November 12th, 2024 regular Township Board meeting, the bills, a liquor license transfer authorization for 2843 East Grand River Suite 100 Class C, a liquor license approved for 3520 Okemos Road SDD and SDM licenses, and a resolution in support of House Bills 4274 and 4275, establishing a revenue sharing trust fund at the state level. So do you have a motion on the consent agenda this evening?
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Trustee Wilson, supported by Trustee Trezise. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Trustee Trezise.
I had one question for Amber, if she could.
Director Clark, would you mind joining us at the podium, please?
And maybe for you too. The question is, your memo of November 26th, the first paragraph says, or someplace in there, does not require local government approval and is presented to us for approval. I'm wondering why.
So our new updated liquor license ordinance that we just did, probably about 6 months ago, requires any liquor license, whether it's a transfer, SDD, SDM, any type of class, it needs to come before the Township Board. I feel like that keeps us all in the same parameters, right? We all see all the applications for liquor licenses for each address, no matter what license type. The state gets to make the decision on an SDD, SDM, though.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, the consent agenda has been moved and seconded as presented. Will Deputy Clerk Gordon please call the roll?
Clerk Demas?
Yeah.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Lentz?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Trezise?
Yes.
And Supervisor Hendrickson.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda is item 10, questions for the attorney. We have none. Item 11, the hearings, we have none. Item 12, action items, we have none. Which brings us then to our first item for discussion in agenda item 13, special use permit number 2418, Okemos Gateway LLC, 1614 West Grand River Avenue, recreational marijuana retailer. And here before us this evening, we have interim manager Tim Schmidt.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. So the request in front of you this evening is a result of changes, clarification that the board asked for at one of the last meetings with respect to this application. There was some typographical errors in the application, which the applicant acknowledged. They moved too quickly, and they have corrected those. We have a revised application in front of you this evening, which appears to align with everything we need it to align with. Just for our newer members, so this is the final stage. in the recreational marijuana process. And so we have previously issued earlier this year licenses to one operator in each of the 4 districts where we got an application. This was the only district in which we got 2 applications. And so the board reviewed both applications for licensing at the time and opted to grant the conditional license to this operator. Under the ordinance, that operator then has 60 days to submit for special use permit review. That is done entirely under the zoning ordinance. So it's our standard special use permit review. There are no additional criteria beyond what's in the ordinance, because the majority of the standards for these uses are in the licensing side anyway. So this is the same application, the same rough layout that has been submitted both for medical in 2020, was submitted again for medical after the original approval expired, and then was submitted then for recreational earlier this summer. Planning Commission did review this, held a public hearing on September 9th, and received no input from the public. Further discussed the matter on the 23rd and recommended approval of the special use permit by unanimous vote. The board did discuss this on the 12th and had some concerns with the application, which is why we're back for further discussion. They have, as mentioned, provided that additional application that's clarified the concerns that were raised. Another thing that I do want to clarify here, there was some discussion about the standards for odor, noise, things of that nature. Just like any other special use permit, they don't need to address it in their ordinance. That's the standard they have to meet. If they do not meet it, they will be in violation under the zoning ordinance, just like any other user in the township. And so candidly, their application can say whatever it wants at this point. They will meet it. If they don't, we will have violations issued. That goes for any of the standards in the zoning ordinance. We're a little more straightforward on the zoning side. You meet it or you don't. So be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here this evening to answer any questions as well. But again, this is for discussion this evening. After the discussion, we will bring it back for action at the board's next meeting.
Thank you very much. Board members, any discussion on this? Trustee Trezise?
Yeah, we went over this in some detail at the prior meeting, and there were some errors or misstatements in the, what I think was probably just a copy of their original application, which has changed over the last couple of years. I thought their presentation was very clear, very detailed, and I have no questions or concerns about what has been provided to us.
Okay. Treasurer DeShane?
The original application was lacking materially, as Trustee Trezise points out. Was a new application fee charged for this applicant? And if not, why not? And what is your criteria for requiring a new application fee?
A new application fee since the November 12th meeting?
Yes, since the first application was rejected by the board, asked to be sent back to you, here, us, with the material and typos corrected, missing material. Was a new application fee required of the applicant?
No, we would give any applicant an opportunity to update their application, given that it was not formally rejected. If it was formally rejected, we would have started the process over, and this would have gone back to the Planning Commission for review initially.
It was rejected. We did say, please bring back a new application. What formal device did you need from the board?
Nothing. The board's the board's feedback was accepted, and we went back to the applicant.
Okay, so why wasn't that seen as a formal rejection by the board asking for a new application?
Because no action was formally taken to reject the application, because if we were rejecting it, we would start the process over.
If you would clarify those rules in the future, that'd be helpful. To me, the application came to the board sent it back to the applicant, redo this application. That's a new application in my mind.
Understood.
I think you were looking for a formal motion to deny the application. That would be a formal rejection?
That would be, yes. If there was a motion to deny, that would be start the process over.
Got it.
Typically, if there's amendments, changes that need to be made along the process, we allow that to be done.
I see. Trustee
I would
Trezise?
point out it was only on for discussion, it was not on for action. So we took no formal action to approve or deny it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Trustee Lentz?
I'll say is previously, listening as a member of the public, I appreciated the thoroughness of the presentation, and after reviewing the materials, I think this is the type of business we would want in our community.
Other board members? Yeah, I'll thank the applicant for addressing some of the concerns that were raised at the last meeting. Certainly understand that, the proposal has changed a number of times along the way. And I'm sure you understand the need for us to make sure that we have the accurate information before we render a decision on these things. So I certainly do appreciate your taking that back and making those changes so that we have an updated application with everything we need in order to make a decision. With that, is there anyone else who wishes to make a discussion at this time? We do need to provide some direction to our staff as to whether we are inclined to approve this or bring this back with a resolution to approve or deny. Anyone want to weigh in on that topic? Trustee Trezise?
I would be inclined to approve.
Okay. Trustee Lentz?
I would as well.
I think that based on the hands that are coming up, that's probably the direction we are likely to move. So if we could have a resolution to approve at our next meeting, please.
We will have that ready for you at the meeting next Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up on our agenda is item 13B. And as I scroll, please give me a moment. The Police and Fire Department Cost Recovery Program. And for this, we have the tag team chiefs. We have Chief Grillo and Chief Hamill here to talk about cost recovery and perhaps even, man, we got all three of you for one?
I'm going to give you 2 sentences.
All right.
When I took over as interim manager, this was one of those questions of, it's been done a little bit differently depending on who the finance director is. And so I directed staff to, let's put a formal policy together, please, so we can have this discussion. And that is this presentation that I'm going to turn over to the chief staff.
Supervisor Board, again, thank you for having me up here. So as you recall, other than you new people, last year we spent a lot of time working on our cost recovery ordinance to more formalize it based on what attorneys wanted us to do. And that was really more cost recovery in regards to emergencies. We do get cost recovery for some emergencies, but we also get cost recovery for special events and other things. And one of the things that we've done over the last 4 years is we've been able to use it generally in the third or fourth quarter of the budget year for unforeseen or unanticipated needs that our budget can't support. So for example, last year we had a failure of our fire investigation camera that we use from our fire marshal, and due to evidence collection, things like that, we had to have it, didn't have budget for it. That was late last year. So we used cost recovery money. We had new policy from OSHA on breaking down our personal protective equipment and evaluating it. So we had some issues last fall where we had to replace 10 pair of boots they wear to fires. They're about $360 a piece. Didn't have the budget for it, but because of the new requirement, couldn't use them anymore. So those are just little things. Chief has got a 20-year-old camera they use for investigation, critical to take pictures at accidents and other crimes that, again, has met its life and needs to be replaced. So those are just examples. So the money goes into a budgeted item for both of us. He has one, we have one. And then what we do is we look at end of year, third and fourth quarter, for these unanticipated or unbudgeted items that we have to replace. They're a need, not a want. And so cost recovery is unbudgeted revenue. It's actually not even really our taxpayers. We get it from Meridian Township. We get it from special events like MSU football games. And so the intent with this policy is to clearly define indirectly what we can somewhat use it for, but we also have in the back of it, as you can see, there's some documents that Chief and I would have to fill out and get final approval from not only a finance director, but the manager, as well as it would come to you guys for approval in the normal process of paying bills and things. So what this is just an avenue for us to keep our operations running when a need comes. And again, I have things that break every year. Nob Hill Fire, I had to replace 2 nozzles. Didn't have a budget for it. They were $1,500 a piece. We used cost recovery money. That was, 2 years ago now. So it's things like that that continually come up that we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when it's going to happen. The other thing that I've used it for this year, when we got the Cascade fill station grant, it was much higher than what we wrote the grant for, so I used cost recovery money to offset that. Same thing with the training grant. We used it for some equipment we bought for training that the grant only covered so much, we paid the difference. So it goes to a really, good use. It's not frivolously spent. We're not just using it to use it. Whatever's left at the end of the year goes back to general fund. It goes wherever it goes. Like I said, we use it for things that we absolutely need, must get, not what we, just toys and things like that. So this is a formal plan on how we do that, and just to keep it neat and clean, so we're transparent on how we're spending the money. Questions?
Board members, any questions on the policy? Trustee Wilson.
Can you identify approximately how much this cost recovery is every year?
So mine is generally between 40 and 60,000. And I'll give you another example. Last year, we earmarked 20,000. So when Ingham County comes in and redoes the brains at the intersections for lights, a number of years ago when Derek was still here, we kind of had an agreement with them that we would support that with giving them a little money for our Opticom system. Well, this past year, we had budgeted 20,000 for that, working with Mr. Opsmer, but it got pushed to April, so we couldn't use the money because it came into a new budget year. So it's things like that it can get eaten up pretty quick. So it's not necessarily just for the fire department. That offset Mr. Opsmer's budget a bit too, because it's obviously something we have to do.
And Chief Grillo, what is your cost recovery average?
Yeah, we anticipate around $30,000.
Okay. And you separate those two funds, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Treasurer DeShane?
Thank you. Chief, is this a update of a current policy, or is there no current cost recovery policy for the township?
There's a cost recovery policy, which is, if you look at the top of the ordinance, so Chapter 18, the Code of Ordinances, but there's no policy on spending that money. We've just been told by the finance directors you can do that. But again, it's only to balance our budgets for those specific needs at the end of the year of the equipment.
And who will make these, do the approval, the chiefs will, the township manager, who has the final say on approval?
So the final say, once we come up with a project, if you will, or an issue or something we need to put money towards, we fill out the forms that are at the back of this, and we give them to the finance director. And what he will do, he or she could do, is confirm the money's truly there. And then it would go to the manager for approval, and then it ends up at the board.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Trezise.
Does it end up with the board as a budget amendment or as just
Yes.
a budget amendment?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So it would be identified not just in the list of bills?
Yep. And if there's money left over, late in the fourth quarter, let's say we have some big event where we have a ton of overtime, like Nob Hill, and then we also had like the bridge recall. Whatever's left could go towards balancing that part of our budgets also,
Sure.
which, then it doesn't have to come out of the general fund. So that's kind of the intent here, is help balance both our budgets, and then whatever's left over can balance someone else's budget.
Okay. Trustee Weiss?
The bullet points I'm looking at here are quite extensive. Do you have an example of something that would not qualify for this?
You're talking about on page 2?
Sorry, I'm not
On
sure.
the cover.
Oh, yeah, yes.
Cover memo.
Or what, page 170 of the overall packet? I'm not sure if you have that in front of you.
Page 170. Oh,
Okay.
I don't. So is it this, the bullet
Yes,
points?
yes, thank you.
I tried to be somewhat all-inclusive, but not. It's impossible to know every, item. So what we did was we put this in here just to kind of give you an overall of what could. But, there could be more. And again, that takes approval from the finance director, the manager, and of course you guys with the budget amendment.
So just to piggyback off of the treasurer's question, we saw a very similar language to this earlier this year, maybe even late last year, to establish that we are, the things that we would collect this revenue for. This is essentially the other half of that policy, saying this is how the mechanisms that we can use to spend that money.
Yes, sir.
Terrific. Then that sounds wonderful. All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll see you back next time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right, next up, item 13C. We have the flowage easement for the interurban wetland preserve. And for this, we have Deputy Township Manager Dan Opsimer.
Good evening Supervisor Hendrickson and board members. So our apologies for kind of the rush on this matter, but just to bring you up to speed, you're all at least somewhat familiar with the Hazlitt Village development, which proposes to redevelop the old L&L grocery store at the southwest corner of Hazlitt and Marsh Road. So the Township Board approved that MUPUD back on July 26, 2022. The Ingham County Drain Commissioner's Office just recently approached us with a conundrum as they continue to work with the developer to try to approve and permit them to begin construction. And we are getting a little anxious about the developer's willingness to proceed with the project if they don't break ground soon. So basically, the situation that we currently find ourselves in is one in which there's two alternatives here. The first being that the developer clear cuts the tree line to the north of the interurban pathway to construct a detention basin that would store the stormwater that's discharged from Phase 3. Phase 3 is essentially the undeveloped portion, so the forested area south of the old grocery store footprint. And I'm going to go down to page 3 of the cover memorandum. This purple area right here is roughly where those tree removals would occur. So if you're walking the interurban northeasterly right here, the tree line that's there today on your left-hand side would no longer be present. You would probably see clear through to the rear yards of the townhomes that would be constructed at the southern portion of the development, roughly right here where my cursor is. So we would lose that aesthetic there along the north side of the interurban pathway in order to store that stormwater. The other dynamic here is that for Phase 1, which is the current developed portion of the site, and I'm actually going to, Emily, could you type in Okemos, Michigan for me? Yep, go ahead and hit send, or enter. So phases 1 and 2 of the proposed development comprise the current developed portion of the property. So basically everything here that you see, aside from the footprint of the new American house that was just recently constructed. So this entire landmass currently discharges into this detention basin. And the developer originally proposed to discharge to this basin for this existing footprint, which would comprise phases 1 and 2 of their development. This basin failed in June or July of this year when we had the 1,000-year storm event. Basically, the water reached the top of the basin, crested over, washed out the vegetation across the top of the berm, and then washed debris, sediment down into the land preserve in roughly this area right here, southwest of that basin. So the option 1 would be for the developer to design that basin here for Phase 3 and to redesign this basin, which is going to take a considerable amount of time because the developer is going to have to get kind of into the weeds on the engineering design of that basin. So we're concerned about the length of time that will take. And so the drain office actually proposed this option. And if you go to page 4 of the cover memorandum, there's 2 pink arrows here And so it's kind of hard because I cut off the development, but the development is right here just off the edge of the screen. So what they're proposing is to install 2 storm pipes. So this one right here where the pink arrow is, that would be the first discharge point. So that would be the discharge of phases 1 and 2, the existing developed portion of the site. And then this one would be the storm pipe that would discharge the stormwater from phase 3, the undeveloped portion of the site that would be developed. From there, there's a pretty steep drop-off right where the pipes discharge, but that would be on the developer's site. And they would put some riprap in to control the velocity of the water. But after about 20 feet, it levels off and there's not much elevation change. So the water would flow relatively slowly and calmly, and it's going to follow these pink lines, which show the lowest area of the topography. This is the north-south leg of our pathway right here. And so there is an existing cross tube or culvert under the pathway right there, because we already have stormwater runoff coming from this site. Not intentionally, but unintentionally, that's just the nature of it. There is some stormwater runoff coming from the site, and it already uses this existing cross tube to get to the lowest lying area, which is this area in blue. So this is 6.5 acres, and this is where the water would ultimately settle. So it's going to be discharged from these 2 storm pipes. It'll slowly flow across the land, following the lowest topography, go through the cross tube, and then it would mostly accumulate here. And so what this does is it bypasses the need to redesign the existing regional basin south of the American House development and saves us the time that would be involved with that, and also the time to finish engineering that proposed basin right along the northern end of the interurban pathway. We're hoping that this would allow for the developer to break ground in the spring, maybe the late winter. We will still have to get all of the EGLE permits approved for water and sanitary. The road department, township, and the Ingham County Drain Office still need to give the final approvals. So we still have, at least several months ahead of us. But this would kind of bring things to closure with the drain office. We still have a maintenance agreement that we would work out with the drain office to memorialize some of the other, perhaps some of the things that the Land Preservation Advisory Board has given us to work on. And also some of the finer points that we've been discussing with the drain office. One potential benefit to the township that we've been discussing with the drain office, this yellow highlighted area right here is the Pine Lake outlet drain. It flows to the south, so in this direction. And so today we do have portions, the lowest areas of the pathway, which are actually called out here. These 3 areas that are called out are the lowest areas, and then one additional area right here, about halfway up this north-south leg of the pathway. That's where the water will crest over the pathway first during a heavy rain event. And so conceptually, what we've been talking to the drain office about is installing some kind of relief structure in this berm that separates our land preserve and the wetland here from the Pine Lake outlet drain. Because we could set those relief structures at a lower elevation, just lower than the lowest elevations of our pathway, so that the water has a relief outlet before it crests and floods the pathway. So that would be an improvement over existing conditions. And that would be something that would be done at the cost of the developer, and then, the drain office would contract it out and perform it, and then they would bill it back to the developer through an assessment. That is, generally speaking, a rough overview of the discussions that we've had with the drain office and kind of a succinct summary. More than happy to answer any questions that the board may have. One thing that I'll leave you with is time is of the essence. So if the board is comfortable, it would help to move and approve the flowage easement this evening. More than happy to answer any and all questions that you have. We also have Our park staff, we have Director Wazinski and Emma Campbell on hand. If you have any questions regarding the inventory report and the original land acquisition file, that's in your packet for the land preserve.
Thank you very much, Deputy Manager Opsimer. Board, any discussion at this time? Trustee Wilson.
Dan, do you believe that the Drain Commission will be satisfied if we put this flow easement in? They've kept the developer waiting for over a year now while they've been discussing options. Would this be the last thing that they would require before the developer could move ahead?
The developer will need to update their plans, and the developer may have, I'm gonna look to my left. Did we get any plans yet today? Okay. The plans will be coming any day now, so they did need to add storm scepters to the plans.
Okay.
That's gonna help filtrate the water and meet those filtration requirements that we have memorialized into the flowage easement. Those were not in the plans. They're also gonna have to show the realignment of the storm pipe, disconnecting from that regional basin. So there's a little bit of CAD work that still has to go, but we gave the developer the reassurance that this seemed to be moving in the right direction. So they're already working on revising those plans. And the drain office thought that they might get them even yesterday, but I suspect that wasn't the case because I haven't seen a written record and neither has Tim.
Okay. Thank you.
Pleasure to share.
The double incentive for the developer here, the cost of holding on to this property without developing is something, but we passed a tax incentive for this property around a year and a half ago. They gave the developer a 10-year window of no additional taxes. And so every day, every month that goes by, they're losing out on the tax realization once the property is completed. So for that reason, I'm going to make a motion that we suspend our rules and take action on this item tonight.
We have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Supported by Clerk Demas. I'm not sure if we discussed the suspension of the rules, so we're going to go ahead and say all those in favor of suspension of the rules, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion to suspend our rules carries. So we can take action on it this evening. Treasurer DeShane.
Thanks. I move to approve the flowage easement between the Charter Township and Meridian and the Ingham County Drain Commissioner's Office for the Interurban Wetland Preserve and authorize the supervisor and clerk to execute the easement.
Support.
It's been moved by Treasurer DeShane and supported by Trustee Wilson. Any discussion on this item? Treasurer DeShane.
None for me.
Trustee Josice.
Yeah, I read all the documentation sort of associated with this, and I'm not a hydrologist. But they have weighed in on this, and I believe this will preserve the wetland area of the preserve as best we can and allow the development to take place. Is that your understanding of how this will work?
Yeah, so our land stewardship staff did take inventory of the species that are out there. There are some that will benefit from wetter conditions, and there's some drawbacks. The weed canary grass will probably proliferate more than it is today just because of the nutrient loading that will occur from the stormwater. So there will be some pros and some cons from a stewardship perspective.
As I understand it, this is designed to get a significant portion of any suspensions in the water to drain out in this flowage area as opposed to going into the wetland area.
Yes, correct. So the storm scepters will help capture those solids and the sediment. Probably look at some kind of maintenance schedule for the storm scepters so that those are being cleaned out when we get to the finer points of the maintenance agreement. But with the flowage easement itself, we were trying to get the highest level, making the standard that we put in the flowage easement is the drain office's standard, which is that they get 80% of the contaminants out of the water. So we're using their own standards, and that's what we originally drafted and sent to them.
And the maintenance requirements will be of the developer?
Correct. Everything that we're talking about, even.
Ongoing.
Yep. If our pathway, if that culvert under our pathway fails, the drain office will now have to come in and perform that work or get the developer to perform it. But if the drain office is hiring a contractor, they will bill it back to the developer. For instance, like when we did the UNRWA drain, right? We had to pay that outstanding roughly 19,000 in assessments. But the original bill that we started looking at was, I think, over 50,000, but roughly 30,000 of that were costs that needed to go back to property owners and developers. So same here, they will be assessing the developer for all the costs. And then we get the protection of making sure that if our pathway is undermined, or if the culvert needs to be jetted and cleared, or if it needs to be replaced, that would be on them, or if it simply needs to be upsized.
Thank you.
Trustee Lentz?
Thank you, Supervisor. You had said earlier, and apologies, I was trying to look at multiple screens, that there were two options. One involved the clear cutting of those trees there. To be clear, this second option that we're talking about with the different phases, that's a different option than that clear cutting, correct?
Correct. All of the trees, so the drain office will create a conservation easement in this purple area. And so all of these trees will be preserved under a conservation easement. We're really probably only talking about, though, if they did construct a basin, we're probably only talking about the trees in roughly this area, which I think I calculated at about 0.6 acres, which is cited in your memo.
Thank you.
This is a wetland area, so this is already protected. They would have to get a wetland use permit from the township. That's a 3-acre wetland, so yeah, they'd have to get a permit from the township to go into this wetland and work. But that wetland will also help, this is the property boundary right here, you can see it very clearly with the color coding of that conservation area. So the water will also be filtrated in addition to the storm scepters. The wetland here on the developer's property will also provide a natural filter for that stormwater. So a lot of the initial contaminants will stay on the developer's site in that wetland.
Thank you.
Other board member discussion? I appreciate that we've tackled this, and also the hard work and consideration of the Land Preservation Board. Obviously this is a tough issue, especially for a group like that who takes the stewardship and preservation of our land preserves very seriously. And so their unanimous approval of this speaks volumes to the care that was put into the easement, and how we expect that our land preserves will be treated. This is, I think, a good solution to a tough challenge. In this community, we have trouble with water everywhere, it seems like. And new developments are no different. But I know that, former trustee McCurtis, was there as well, and worked with the Land Preservation Board alongside their membership to make sure that, what was approved and authorized was in the best interests of the community. And so I have no issue voting for this. Any other discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion on the table to approve the easement. Deputy Clerk Gordon, will you please call the roll?
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Lentz?
Yes.
Trustee Wilson?
Yes.
Trustee Trezise?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Supervisor Hendrickson?
Yes.
Clerk Demas?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Next up is agenda item 13D, agreement to add the south branch to the Hazlet Village Square branch of the Pine Lake Outlet Drain. So we have, once again, Deputy Manager Opsmer.
Good evening once again, Supervisor Hendrickson and board members. So this is directly related to the flowage easement, but the 433 agreement would essentially make the flowage path of the stormwater after it's discharged from the storm pipes a county drain, so that land and the existing culvert under our pathway, for instance, become a county drain, and then they get the protections of the Michigan Drain Code, in addition to the protections that we're affording the land under the flowage easement. So more or less, this is just the legality of creating a public drain where today there is none.
Okay.
And we're a party because of our ownership of the land.
Does this have the same timeliness need that the easement did?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay, very good. So then, board, if we are agreeable to this agenda item, we would need to suspend our rules in order to take this agenda item up this evening. Trustee Trezise.
I move to suspend the rules and allow action on this item this evening.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wilson. All those in favor of suspension of the rules, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries to suspend our rules. All right, now on the topic at hand, do we have a motion for our consideration? Trustee Trezise.
Move to approve the agreement to add the south branch to the Hazlet Village Square branch of the Pine Lake Outlet Drain pursuant to sections 425 and 433 of Public Act 40 of 1956 as amended, and authorize the supervisor and clerk to sign and execute the agreement.
Support.
Moved by Trustee Trezise, supported by Trustee Wilson. Any discussion on this topic?
It would be helpful.
Treasurer DeShane?
Would you bring up the map and show us exactly the area we're talking about here?
Oh, that's right, we don't have any exhibits on this one.
Oh, that was it.
You just went by it.
Do you want that map, or do you want a broader map? I was gonna
Oh, here we
show
go.
Phil. Oh, shoot. The version that I put in your packet doesn't have the exhibits, so, okay, we'll go back to this one.
Here you go.
So can you talk us through where this branch actually is?
Yes, it will essentially be this green line right here, the flowage path of the water will be essentially the county drain, because there is no actual storm pipe, there is no man-made ditch, so we don't have an open or a buried drain. We just have land upon which the storm water will flow. So really, in this instance, it's the flow path of the water.
So we're in essence turning this drain over to the county drain.
We're establishing it as a county drain, we still own the land. So we're giving them an easement to discharge water onto our property, and we're establishing that flow path as the county drain.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Other board members with questions? So the actual mechanics of turning something over to the county as a drain, does this, this is still a preserve area. Is this, if they wanted to come put a pipe in there at some point, they would not be permitted to do that still?
Not without our permission.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, Deputy Clerk Gordon, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Lentz.
Yes.
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Trezise.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Supervisor Hendrickson.
Yes.
Clerk Demus.
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda is item 14, comments from the public. Any members of the public wishing to make comments at this time? Seeing none, we'll close public comment at 6:58 PM. Next up is item 15, other matters and board member comments. Any board members wishing to make comments at this time? Seeing none. Okay, next on our agenda is item 16, a closed session for review of employment applications for township manager under MCL 15.2681F. Any board member wishing to make a motion to enter closed session?
So moved.
Support.
And I will point out that, that this is a motion to enter closed session for review of employment applications under MCL 15.2681F, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. It's been moved by Trustee Wilson and supported by Trustee Lentz. Clerk Gordon, will you please, Deputy Clerk Gordon, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Wilson.
Yes.
Trustee Trezise.
Yes.
Trustee Sunland.
Yes.
Supervisor Hendrickson.
Yes.
Clerk Demus.
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane.
Yes.
Trustee Lentz.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. The board will enter closed session at 7 PM. So thank you. If you would, please, folks, if you're not going to be a part of this closed session, we'd ask that you clear the room. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Spared no expense. We're 1 minute away from a nice clean getaway. Ooh.
Oh,
That'd be
you worked that too hard.
We'll re-enter, the board will re-enter open session at 7:59 PM. We do have some discussion at this time. Trustee Trezise.
Thank you. I should advise the public that our talent selection or search agency, Amy Cell Talent, has provided the board with a list of candidates that applied for this position that met the qualifications that we were placed on the posting. The board has reviewed those, and 3 of them, based on a consensus of the board, have risen to the top. And we would like to instruct our talent agency to contact those 3 candidates to arrange for interviews in the future. And I would make a motion to instruct Amy Cell Talent to contact the 3 candidates that have risen to the top of our discussion to arrange for their interviews beginning at 1:30 on December 3rd.
Support.
Moved by trustee Trezise, supported by trustee Wilson. Any further discussion? I'd like to take just a brief moment to thank all of the applicants who have applied for the township manager position. I think we had an excellent interview pool to discuss, and I look forward to hearing back from these 3 finalists and getting some very exciting interviews on December 3rd. But with that, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. One quick additional note, there will be a meet and greet following our interviews in this room on December 3rd at 5 p.m. And so if any members of the public, of course, our interviews are open to the public as well, but any members of the public who wish to have a more informal meet and greet with our candidates, that would be the time to do so. So we look forward to all of that happening on a very exciting day, December 3rd. Any other topics for the good and cause of the board this time? Seeing none, the next item on our agenda is motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Treasurer DeShane.
Support.
Supported by Trustee Wilson. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we stand adjourned at 8:02 p.m.